little different now. Come a long way. Been a long winter.
I've got the picture from 49. Really just became this great kind of index card of information.
Green will be recontoured to match the original layout and design of the club before it was renovated.
It's very reminiscent of this green.
Andrew Green is the right man at the right time for us.
You see just a hint of a shadow that starts to talk about this drop off on that right side.
We're just planting our greens, getting ready for the tour to get here. Backs are against the wall a little bit.
They're not even close to what they used to be.
This is where the PGA Tour season will end.
Everything's completely different.
I've got the picture from 49. Do you want to see that? So I utilize a tablet during construction because it's a lot easier. The stunning thing about this picture from 49 is that typically when we get past World War II, that imagery can really show a golf course that's aged out, and it's very hard to find anything that's representative of like something from the 20s, let's say. In this particular instance, the photo was almost high definition quality, incredibly sharp, and you could blow it up and really see a lot of detail. So it really just became this great kind of index card of information and something we could point to, but it also started to validate how the golf course had originally been.
This is the existing championship tee. You can see it's 455 yards. A fairly daunting hole now. We're going to keep this tee in the new design, but we are going to move the green closer to this tee. And so we could still play it as a, let's say, a 425-yard par 4 if we wanted to. But we're going to make it to where there's a tee up closer to the water's edge that can be set up to be drivable. And so the reason that we would like to do that is it adds an opportunity for scoring volatility, but also it gives us room behind the existing green to have a bigger fan build out, which we think will be a cool place for people to stand and watch, potentially people trying to drive the green.
Down the right side, if you avoid the bunkers and some of the mounding and hummocks, you can land with a downhill kick and the ball propel it on itself onto the green. If you go long, there's into some short grass back there that just adds some thoughtfulness and creativity for the golfer, depending on how aggressive they're playing, and especially if they're trying to get to kind of a back or left hole location.
I think it's going to be electric because if the fans are informed about what's happening and they see balls coming in, especially if the ball is getting close to the hole or looks like it's going to be a makeable putt, I think it's going to build some excitement. Not to mention it's one of the prettiest places on the entire property. Andrew Green is the right man at the right time for us. The first conversation I ever had with him lasted an hour before we even interviewed him. And we talked about Eastlake, we talked about his philosophy. He had a reverence that I could feel that was genuine. Since then, his work in the field has proven itself at Oak Hill, at Scioto, Inverness, Congressional, other places he's done, they've been revered. You know, I think he is the right man for the right job at the right time.
Just knowing that Donald Ross was a founding part of the vision here, and that it was painting this legacy of not only major championship golf, but great golf in the state of Georgia.
So we provided a little more width for the player to bounce the ball in here. And then we've got maybe a bit of a double plateau, but there's kind of 4 different areas within this elongated rectangular putting surface.
I try to project the idea that we're trying to do what's best for the club itself, not play the greatest hits of a certain architect. So we pulled a lot of the shaping, the features from some of the historical documentation, but then also kind of had to present what we felt like those looked like on the ground in Ross's time. Some of Ross's work, like Pinehurst recently with the US Open, you know, this idea of the greens being domed and so forth, some of that's from the evolution of the course. The greens have an incredibly unique shape, very interesting. Some places where there's squared off corners, some places where there's appendages that flow left or right, and that allows us to really provide a variety of hole locations. That aspect at its heart are really the biggest thing from a Donald Ross perspective that we tried to pursue.
Everything's completely different. They're totally new greens.
What do you think Andrew was thinking or trying to do with this as you look at it now?
I think his biggest thing was just trying to restore the integrity of the course that Jones was playing, and then also making sure that it would be challenging and fun to the membership, but also still be able to produce a challenge to the tour players when they were here. I think those were obviously big things that we had as kind of key pinpoints into the entire renovation when he was making the design for it.
Charlie, was this green changed much from your memory?
Oh, God, yeah. It's way different. It's a totally different hole. Essentially a 30-yard difference from back to front on what your hole locations are, and then there's so much movement in tee space too.
So here we see number 2, and you start to see kind of the 2 greens that were once a winter and summer green, and you start to see this back half versus the front, and it creates a really interesting diamond shape. The other thing to notice is this shadow running across. That's where they would have excavated material and hauled it or pushed it out onto this corner so that the green was flat. Right now, the natural topography is falling as we're looking at this in that direction. We created an opportunity for a ball to run along this right side and into a new back left hole location that was never there before as far as the previous version of the golf course. All in all, it's one of the larger greens on the golf course. It's got a lot going on, and there's a lot of difference from a front hole location to a back one.
Yeah, the hole locations on this green are just so cool. Just tons of variety.
We're just planting our greens, getting ready for the tour to get here.
More or less like a waste. You just got to kind of keep shaking it. But I'm not saying you got to cover the dirt as far as it needs to be green, but this is kind of the general theme of what it should look like pretty uniformly across.
You gotta shake the sprigs. We're not twinkling, we're not sprinkling, okay? You gotta shake them. If you're not getting dirty, you're not sprinkling right. Just get a little dirty today, okay? It's just soil from South Carolina. It'll wash off, I promise you.
It's basically just the Bermuda roots. We cut them into the green and then they grow back from there. It's about an 8 to 10 week process. Backs are against the wall a little bit here.
So the plant goes on the ground and then you cut it in, and it essentially pushes that stem into the sand itself where it can stay moist and continue to take up water and generate a new root system. And then from that point on, that plant will spread. You can see there's your leaves and your stems, and then your root structures come out of each one of these inner nodes here. And now it comes here and we plant it in the ground. Then it'll press it in like that, and it'll get these roots into the actual crevice itself. And then it'll continue to spread, create new stems, create new rhizomes, new stolons that'll run across the top and generate leaves, and eventually, you'll have a full playing surface.
This green, the oldest island green in the United States, will be kind of reshaped to fit the design that Donald Ross did in 1913 is when he started work.
You can kind of see it sitting here on a peninsula, kind of a mitten shape. We paired this with some other imagery that really showed us it in a more three-dimensional perspective, and that became really a hallmark of the adjustments that we made.
The bunker on the left will no longer be here, so it'll just be the green itself. There'll be a scooped out area over the green, a little chipping area. So if the hole location's on the back, there'll be a little bit of a runoff, which could add some difficulty to the shot.
As we were finishing it, I swear it looked smaller than it was before. And I knew that we had, in fact, made a larger footprint. But man, it is intimidating. I think eliminating the bunker left-hand side makes it feel like there's not a place to miss. Out of the back left, we worked on this historical aspect of a little bailout area, that if you go long through the green, there's some short grass there that the ball will settle in. I think East Lake's rough is legendary. during the Tour Championship, but having some of those short grass areas like on 15 is valuable.
One of the other things that we're going to do is the area over here to the right where that scoreboard is, we want to open that view up so you see the full expanse of the lake. That's one of the other themes that you'll see throughout the renovation project, is trying to open up the interior views of the golf course.
What did you listen to while you were shaping?
So I really try when I'm in a machine to listen to music from the place I'm working. And here in Atlanta, certainly listening to Ludacris seemed like the logical choice. And then also the reality that if you just put Luda into Amazon Music or something, you're gonna get a playlist that's kind of all over the place, but kind of connected to them. Created a lot of energy, a lot of fun in the piece of equipment, some really good rhythms. So here on 18, this golf hole for its history really had never had a great identity. In a previous version, this used to be the 9th hole. We felt like it was important as the finishing hole for the FedEx Cup and the Tour Championship that we needed to make sure that it represented the overall dynamic of the golf course. And we started up at the tee and into the fairway by trying to make the landing zone more natural. As the ball now travels over that slope, for the most part, the ball is always going to settle on a downhill lie. That is meant to put some thought or potentially doubt in a player's mind as they stand over that shot and try to anticipate playing to this green or to a layup. We've taken the lake that used to cross the driving range and turned it and brought it down the golf hole. So now a layup, especially out of a heavy lie, has to be mindful of that. Depending on your play, you might lay up back of it, have a full club in, play up closer, and be able to chip or pitch onto the putting surface.
This is where the PGA Tour season will end in 2024. And we just think it's appropriate to add a little bit more drama, volatility. I am looking forward to seeing the old East Lake reveal itself. We've seen pictures, we've done a lot of study, but to actually see it happen and see the golf course kind of return to the golden age the way that it was when Bobby Jones played here, and Alexis Sterling and Charlie Yates and a lot of others. The way that we thought about the renovation is this is the golf course that created those players. So why was that? It has to have something to do with the way the golf course was designed. I'm looking forward to seeing that reveal itself, and if it's even possible to become more authentic.
I'm really intrigued to see what they're gonna think. They're so good and they're so smart that they'll beat me a couple times, I would think, thinking their way through the course, and I'm all for it. I really think the response will be that it is more interesting, more memorable, that they could use more of their creativity to find success than the previous version.
We want you to feel like you're at a very important place.